My Lords, the Hillsborough disaster is one of the greatest stains on British history, and the families of those who lost loved ones have shown endless determination to get justice. Having consulted with these groups over the past few weeks, we believe more time is needed to draft the best version of a Hillsborough Law. We remain fully committed to bringing in this legislation at pace.
I'm grateful as always to my noble friend, the Minister, for his compassion. As far as the families are concerned, the Hillsborough Law is the Public Authority Accountability Bill that received a first reading with cross-party support in 2017. They worry that starting from scratch will lead to a dilution of its vital protections. So will the government please show them any new draft in advance of introduction, there being considerable irony in such a secretive process over a new duty of candour?
My Lords, I understand there have been multiple meetings between Hillsborough Law now and the government, Andy Burnham, Steve Rotherham, and also with Liverpool MPs and my noble friend Lord Wills. And I also understand that the Prime Minister is taking a personal interest in this matter, and I know that the government has undertaken to look at this, all the questions which have been raised very seriously, and will come forward with legislation at pace, as I said in my original answer.
My Lord, is the noble Lord Minister aware that the Joint Committee on Human Rights carried out an inquiry into the proposed Hillsborough Law, unanimously coming out in its favour, having heard evidence from, amongst others, victims of the Hillsborough disaster, the Lord Bishop of Liverpool, James Jones, who chaired the independent inquiry, and Andy Burnham. My Lords, in a letter dated April the 12th, the government did not say which of the three provisions, the duty of candour, referred to by the noble Baroness Lady Chakrabarti, equality of arms, or the independent advocate, now requires more delay and further consideration. Do we not owe it to the 97 who lost their lives in 1989, including children, some of whom were my own constituents in Liverpool at the time, to say why a promise made as a manifesto commitment is now a promise which has not been kept?
My Lords, the Prime Minister is painfully aware that he made a promise, and yet that date has slipped. And regarding the specific points which the noble Lord makes, the government has undertaken to look at this very closely and come up with legislation. I also am personally affected by this matter. A friend of mine, brother, died in the disaster, and everyone I know who is involved in this is very, very seized of the matter and wants to get the answer right as quickly as possible.
After the lies of the police at Hillsborough, embellished by the infamous front page of The Sun, why would the government not insist on an enforceable duty of candour? And wouldn't this reduce the costs of many millions of pounds in other inquiries concerning the police where a culture of secrecy and cover-up still persists?
Well, I think the government has said that it wants to introduce a duty of candour with criminal consequences for those who do not live up to that standard. But it's part of a greater whole, which is the reason the legislation has not come forward as we would have liked, and we are undertaking further talks with the parties I've already mentioned.
My Lord.
In 2021, following a very lengthy process, which was exacerbated by prevarication, obfuscation, and failure to deliver materials to the panel, the Daniel Morgan Independent Panel, which I chaired, recommended the creation of a statutory duty of candour to be owed by all law enforcement agencies to those whom they serve, subject only to protection of national security and relevant data protection legislation. The response of His Majesty's Government in June 2023 was that the Home Office are reviewing this recommendation and working with HMIC FRS, the introduction of a statutory duty of candour is for government. Can the noble Lord the Minister tell your Lordship's House what the current position of the government is, please?
Yes, the government is very clear. We remain fully committed to bringing legislation forward at pace, which will include a legal duty of candour for public servants, and will have criminal sanctions for those who refuse to comply with that duty of candour.
My Lords, many truth and justice campaigns from Orgreave to Grenfell as well as Hillsborough have faced that culture of state defensiveness and denial. But in addition, working class communities also face an unequal battle for justice because of legal aid and resources. So can my noble friend the Minister guarantee that the new law will right that wrong and give working class communities real access to justice?
Yes, I mean, it is those I can give my noble friend the reassurance she is looking at. It is looking at the extent of the legal aid which will be available to those families as they go into these types of large-scale litigation, if I can put it like that. And it is precisely those issues which are being looked at, and there will be further discussions with the groups which are affected.
Hillsborough was, of course, a disaster with tragic consequences, and it evinced a disgraceful response from many public servants, public authorities, and indeed, in some instances, the police. It's rather depressing to find that we have to legislate to impose a duty of candour on such public servants when we already have a law with regard to misfeasance in public office, and surely a failure of candour amounts to misfeasance in these circumstances. So could I ask the noble Lord that when they come to eventually legislate, will they ensure that they have effective means of enforcing the duty of candour, not imposing it, but enforcing it, and ensuring that there will be punishment for those who fail to display such an obvious duty in public office?
Yes, I take the point the noble and learned Lord has made. It is regrettable that we need this duty of candour, but we do need it because we've seen what's happened in the events over the last 20 years or so. And as I've said in answers to other noble lords, it is the intention that there will be criminal sanctions in the duty of candour when it is brought forward, and that is the firm commitment of the government.
Could the noble Lord Minister explain how the duty of candour, notable in its lack at Hillsborough, and not only at Hillsborough, can still be made compatible with the need to protect secrets which we need to address the complex national security threats we face, referred to by Lady Alone, but is a critical part of getting this legislation right, I suggest.
Yes, I think the noble lady has made a very good point, and I think I will write to her on that matter, because it is clearly a sensitive matter, and I think it's more appropriate I write.
Very strong supporter of the duty of candour, and nothing should hinder the Hillsborough Law from coming onto the statute books as soon as possible. But does he understand, in order to make it fully effective, and this could be done in a further process, there has to be protection for the people who speak out, who are very afraid of detriment that they will experience, and also a system that ensures there is investigation when the issues are actually raised?
Yes, I think the noble lady has made a very good point. She's raising the issue of whistleblowers, which I've heard her raise in many other contexts as well. I think one of the points which it is worth me making from the dispatch box is the duty of candour itself is a piece of legislation, but there needs to be a wider range of measures taken, of behaviours which are inculcated into our public service to address the wider issues which have been revealed, if I can put it like that, through past behaviours over the last couple of decades.
My Lord, I'm sure the whole House will share the noble Lord the Minister's admiration for the steadfastness of the Hillsborough victims and his horror at the police cover-up. But will he take this opportunity to say a hard thing that nonetheless I think needs saying, which is that after a disaster of this kind, although victims deserve our sympathy and our support, they do not become experts on the law or the ultimate arbiters of what should change. And indeed, our criminal justice system and our political system depend precisely on those decisions being made by cool-headed people who are at one remove because not directly involved with the horror?
Yes, I think I do agree with the point which the noble lord has made. Victims are not arbiters of the law. However, it is incumbent of anyone in government to be as sympathetic as is practical to the victims. And as I said in answer to an earlier question, the Prime Minister is taking a personal interest in this matter. And he, if anyone, will know the limitations of where sympathy is appropriate, but where the law is also appropriate. And it's our firm intention to bring forward legislation as soon as possible.